You got a raise, you're making more than you ever have, and somehow at the end of the month, you still feel broke. I'm Max of Monkey Money, and today we're going to explain exactly why that happens and what to actually do about it. The feeling of being broke on a good income is not a math problem. It's a psychology problem that produces a math problem. Most people try to fix it by earning more, but if the psychology doesn't change, more income just produces more of the same feeling on a larger budget. Understanding why you feel broke is the prerequisite to actually fixing it. The first and most pervasive reason is lifestyle inflation. And it's sneaky because it doesn't feel like inflation. It feels like progress. When your income was $45,000, the $65,000 salary felt like it would change everything. And for a few months, it did. Then the nicer apartment happened. The car payment got upgraded. The dining out became a default instead of an occasion. The subscriptions multiplied. By the time you've settled into the new income, the lifestyle has restructured itself to consume it. The margin feels identical to what it was at $45,000 because the fixed costs rose in lockstep with the income. This is lifestyle inflation. It is the single most reliable destroyer of financial progress among people who are doing everything else right. The cruel irony is that the behaviors driving it, the nicer apartment in the better neighborhood, the car that reflects your professional status, the experiences that match your peer group, all feel completely justified in isolation. The second reason is hedonic adaptation, which is the psychological mechanism underneath lifestyle inflation. Hedonic adaptation is the human brain's tendency to return to a stable baseline of satisfaction regardless of what changes in external circumstances. The raise feels extraordinary for about 90 days. Then it becomes the new normal. The thing that was a luxury becomes the minimum you're willing to accept. This is not a character flaw. It's a deeply embedded feature of human psychology that kept our ancestors from becoming complacent in environments where complacency got you killed. But in a modern financial context, it means that every upgrade to your lifestyle, the nicer apartment, the newer car, the premium version of every service, provides a temporary burst of satisfaction and then silently becomes the floor you expect. The floor keeps rising. The feeling of satisfaction keeps returning to baseline. And you keep feeling like you need more to feel okay, even when the objective financial picture is dramatically better than it was. The third reason is unconscious spending, the invisible drain that doesn't register as a decision because it doesn't feel like one. The daily coffee that's automatic, not chosen. The delivery fee that appears because you didn't plan dinner. The 12 subscriptions running in the background at $8 to $15 each. None of these feel like significant choices in the moment. Together, they represent $300 to $600 a month that most people cannot account for when asked where their money went. The research on unconscious spending consistently shows that people underestimate their discretionary expenses by 20 to 40%. Someone who thinks they spend $400 a month on dining out is often closer to $700. Someone who thinks their subscriptions cost $35 a month hasn't looked at the actual bank statement in 6 months. Here's the banana version of this particular problem. Imagine waking up every morning to find that a few bananas have disappeared from your stash. Not enough to notice on any given day, but enough that a week later you're wondering why the pile looks smaller than it should. You didn't eat them all at once. You didn't make any single large decision to spend them. They just quietly appeared one at a time, in amounts too small to trigger any conscious alarm. That is unconscious spending. The individual amounts are small. The cumulative effect is significant. The fourth reason is high fixed costs, and this is where the income level becomes genuinely relevant in a way that lifestyle inflation alone doesn't capture. At higher income levels, the fixed cost structure of a household tends to be much larger in absolute terms. A mortgage on a home purchased to match a high-income lifestyle, a car payment on a vehicle that reflects professional status, childcare costs for children in quality programs, private school tuition if public school in the neighborhood doesn't meet expectations. Each of these is individually justifiable. Collectively, they can consume 60 to 70% of a high-income household's take-home pay in fixed, non-negotiable monthly obligations. When 65 to 70% of your income is committed before the month starts, the 30 to 35% that remains has to cover every discretionary expense, every savings contribution, every investment, and every unexpected cost. There is not much margin left. And the feeling of there being no margin, despite the large income number, is what produces the feeling of being broke. The fifth reason is social comparison, and it's gotten dramatically more damaging in the era of social media. Research has identified a pattern called money dysmorphia, a distorted perception of your own financial situation, typically caused by constant comparison to peers, influencers, and social media that presents an aspirational lifestyle as the norm. Someone earning $120,000 a year can genuinely feel financially behind because their feed is full of people who appear to be living on significantly more. The problem is that social media is not representative. It is a curated highlight reel of financial performance, the vacations, the homes, the cars, with none of the debt, the stress, or the financial reality underneath it. Comparing your internal financial experience to other people's external financial performance is one of the most reliable ways to produce a feeling of scarcity on any income. If you've made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe to Monkey Money. It really helps us keep making content like this, and we genuinely appreciate every one of you. Now let's talk about what you actually do to stop feeling broke, regardless of what you make. The sixth reason, and this one is the most invisible, is the scarcity mindset that past financial struggles can leave behind. If you grew up with financial instability or went through a period where money was genuinely tight, the neural pathways associated with financial anxiety can persist long after the external circumstances have changed. You can be objectively financially stable and still feel the same low-grade financial dread as someone who is not, because the feeling precedes the assessment, and the feeling was built during a different financial reality. The first move is the only one that addresses the unconscious spending problem at its root: tracking. Not estimating, not budgeting theoretically, actually looking at the bank statement, categorizing the spend, and running the real numbers on what the last 30 days actually cost. Most people do this once and are genuinely shocked. The dining out number is almost always higher than expected. The subscription count is almost always higher than remembered. The miscellaneous category is almost always a significant amount with no clear accounting. This exercise doesn't require any particular action after the first time you do it. Just seeing the real numbers changes behavior. Not because seeing them motivates discipline, but because they make the unconscious spending conscious. Once you know the $700 dining out number, every dining out decision becomes a real choice rather than an automatic one. The second move is automation, and it addresses the income to savings gap by removing the decision entirely. Pay yourself first means that your savings and investment contributions move automatically the moment your paycheck arrives, before you have any opportunity to spend the money. The amount left in your checking account after the automatic transfers is the only money available to spend. Your brain adapts its spending to what is available, and the savings happen whether you're in a strong financial mindset or a terrible one. On a take-home of $6,000 per month, automating 20% means $1,200 moves to savings before you see it. you live on $4,800. And within 60 to 90 days, $4,800 feels like your income, because behaviorally it is. The third move is defining what financial freedom actually means to you, specifically, not abstractly. Most people are spending money in service of a vague idea of the good life rather than a defined vision of what they actually want. Vague goals produce vague spending. If financial freedom means something specific, a paid-off home, a retirement date, a certain level of passive income, the gap between current behavior and that goal becomes visible and real. When you can see the gap clearly, the question changes from, can I afford this, to does this bring me closer to or further from what I actually want? That reframe is more powerful than any budgeting technique because it replaces the feeling of deprivation with the feeling of direction. The fourth move is addressing lifestyle inflation at the source, the raise. The raise is the single most dangerous financial moment for people trying to break the broke feeling cycle, because it is the moment when the lifestyle has the most opportunity to restructure upward. The intervention is mechanical. Before you get used to the new income, automate an increase to your savings and investment contributions proportional to the raise. If the raise is $500 per month in additional take-home, the first $200 to $250 goes to increasing the automatic transfer. The rest is yours to use however you want. You never fully feel the raise in your discretionary budget, but your wealth-building rate just increased permanently. Do that with every raise for a decade, and your savings rate climbs, while your lifestyle inflation stays largely contained. Here is the second banana moment, and it is about the raise specifically. Imagine every time the bunch gets a little bigger, you immediately eat the extra bananas before you even register that the pile has grown. After years of this, you have a bigger and bigger bunch arriving every time, but the pile never actually gets larger because the eating pace expands instantly to match the supply. The intervention is simple. When the bunch gets bigger, hide the extra bananas before you eat them. Over time, the hidden pile grows, even as the eating pile stays the same. The fifth move is the most uncomfortable but arguably the most valuable: auditing your fixed costs honestly. Lifestyle inflation is hardest to reverse once it has been locked into fixed costs: the mortgage, the car lease, the school tuition. You cannot easily cut these without significant life disruption, which is exactly why the conversation about them needs to happen before they get locked in, not after. If your fixed costs are currently consuming more than 50 to 55% of your take-home pay, that is the structural reason you feel financially constrained regardless of income. The fix is not always possible immediately. Leases end, mortgages refinance, situations change. But naming it clearly and committing to not increasing the fixed cost floor when the next decision point arrives is the beginning of getting the structure right. The feeling of being broke on a good income is not permanent, and it's not a character deficiency. It is the predictable output of psychological patterns, hedonic adaptation, unconscious spending, social comparison, operating on a financial structure that was never deliberately designed. Design the structure deliberately and the feeling changes. The income doesn't have to change. The psychology has to change first, and the finances follow. Drop a comment and tell me, which of these is the one closest to home for you right now? If this video helped you understand why the feeling persists regardless of income and what to do about it, subscribe to Monkey Money. Every week we bring you the real financial psychology behind the numbers. See you next video.